Hello, everybody. How are you today? Thank you so much for coming back and watching one of my books and looks video. I'm Jen, and if you are new to my videos, this is the first one you're watching. What I do is I combine two of my favorite things, books and playing with makeup, and I put together a little video where I talk about a book that I have recently read, including spoilers, while I put my makeup on for the day. And today's video is about The Husbands by Holly Gramazio, I believe is how to pronounce her name. If I pronounced it wrong, I'm sorry. The Husbands, I lent the book out to a friend after I finished it, so I don't have it, but I'll put a little screenshot right here so you can see what it looks like. It was a really good book. I did like it. I'm just going to dive right in. I really did like it. I would have never chosen it based on the back blurb. It did have an interesting back blurb, but it's just not my usual genre. Like, as you've seen from my other videos, I'm usually reading mysteries or like young adult or children's adventure books or something. But this one I read because it was part of a book club and I wanted to participate, so obviously I read the book. And it was surprisingly good. I will tell you right off the bat that the ending was kind of abrupt and left me lacking, in my humble opinion. Like, it was fine. But it's a hard story to end. So let me just dive right in and tell you what it's about. So the main character is Lauren. And it starts off, she's at a bachelorette party. It takes place in London. She's at a bachelorette party for her best friend who's getting married, I don't know, like in a couple of weeks. And when she gets home, there is a strange man in her house, and he seems to know her. He's like, "Oh, hey, honey, how was your bachelorette party? How are your friends? How you feeling? Hope you didn't drink too much, blah, 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 blah." So she's like, this guy clearly knows me. And then she starts looking around the apartment, and she realizes things look a little bit different. Like the couch is a different color. There's a different coffee pot on the counter. Little things like that are different, and she's like super confused. And as she talks to this guy more, like, he's a good looking guy, so she like talks to him more. Well, at first she's like terrified and she almost attacks him, but then she realizes like this is some weird thing. And as it turns out, for some reason that is never explained, her attic in her apartment, so her house is, she owns a house and it has an upstairs apartment where she lives and a downstairs apartment that she rents out, and she's friends with that couple. So she has access to the attic. And for some reason, the attic like magically transforms husbands, hence The Husbands. And so it doesn't really explain how it started or why it started or anything, but this guy came out of the attic out of nowhere and is her husband. And she like looks through her phone and there's wedding pictures and there's text messages between them, like, you know, typical husband-wife text messages like, "Hey, I'm gonna be late for work," or "Can you pick up milk on your way home?" and things like that. "Love you, miss you," stuff. So she's super confused, and so she gives it some time, and I think they spend a couple of days to get together, and then she's like, I don't really like this guy. And somehow he goes back up into the attic and a new guy comes down. So the magic is like anytime her husband pops up into the attic, he disappears, a new one appears, and a new husband comes back down. And in the blink of an eye, everything in her life changes. Like her phone text messages change to this person. She has new photographs, she doesn't remember anything from before that moment. She has a recollection of everything that we as the reader are experiencing, but everybody else remembers like, oh, when they first started dating and was at their wedding, or a couple of them she eloped, so not so much. But it's like this weird magical thing where she like keeps getting this reset, this redo between all these different men. And so she's like, oh, cool. Well, let me I can use this to find the perfect man or whatever, right? So she meets this, the first husband, and she spends a couple of days with him, and she's just like, man, not so exciting. So she sends him back up into the attic. And it's funny because at first she gets a little drunk on the power and she sends some of these husbands back immediately over the silliest things. Like one of them had like ugly feet or something. One of them was, had like an ugly mustache. Another one had too many tattoos or whatever. So within the first week or so, she just plows through, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 husbands. Maybe not quite that many. Maybe like a dozen or so. I exaggerate. But she, every now and then, and there was one husband early on who was not abusive. Like, it didn't happen in the story that she was abused, but there's hints. Like, he comes down and he's all grouchy, and she's just like, okay, he's grouchy. And then she looks at herself in the mirror and she looks really thin and her hair is thinning and she just looks really unhappy. She looks through her text messages and most of their texts are arguments, and she hasn't texted with her friends, any of her old friends, in a really long time. He is like mad at her because the kitchen is a mess, and so like just, vaguely abusive, at the very least, emotionally abusive and manipulative. And she can't get him up in the attic until like the next day. And what she ends up doing, I forget what she does to get him up in the attic and get rid of him. But she ends up stuck with him for like a day or two because she can't get him into the attic because he won't listen to her or do anything she says because he's a jerk. Luckily, that's the only one that's like a really quote unquote bad husband. She goes through several husbands though, and like one of them was this really, really wealthy guy, and they don't live in the apartment because he's super rich. She still owns it and like rents it out as an Airbnb. And that's why they were there. They were like setting it up for the next guest or something, and he pops down. And then they go to their big mansion out in the country. And she's like, okay, maybe I can get used to this. It's like this big mansion. But then she realizes he has a son from a previous marriage that's like really weird. And he like kind of weirds her out. And her husband works all the time. And so she's just basically home alone in this big mansion because she doesn't have to work. Her husband's super rich. And she's home alone all the time. And she's like kind of lonely and bored. And she still talks to her friends, but they like, she's doing her thing in this mansion with this stepson. Like, she has to pick him up from school, and he's weird, and the husband's hardly ever around. And she just, like, goes swimming every day and piddles around the house. But then she gets bored and realizes, like, this is lonely. This isn't what I want. And then she starts researching this rich husband and finds out that the company that he owns and works for that made him rich is, like, a security company. And she's weirded out by that because he, like spies, kind of, sort of, like has government contracts with security systems where the government spies on stuff. So she's like, this is icky. I don't like this. So it's funny because she wants to swap him out in the attic, right? She wants to get rid of this husband. She thought like, I can make this work, but no, she can't because he does creepy, awful things. And plus the stepson is really weird. But anyway, so she tries to figure out how to get him back into the attic, but like, he won't come over to the apartment. At one point, she texts him at work and says, hey, on your way home, can you stop over to the apartment, pop up into the attic, and get, like, some certain box thing out of the attic? And then he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. She's like, whew. And so she just waits for, I forget, she leaves the house and goes somewhere and then just, like, waits. And when she goes to the house, she sees someone go in the house, and she thinks, oh, good, finally, I'm going to go see who my new husband is. But it's not him. He sends one of his like assistants or employees to go do it. So she's still stuck with him, and she doesn't know what to do to get him into the house. He won't come over because he's like rich and has all these assistants. He won't come over and do the task. He sends someone else. He's too busy, whatever. So I forget how she gets him there. I think she like threatens to divorce. No, she doesn't threaten to divorce him. She somehow gets him there and gets him up into the attic, but it was a whole to-do, and he was, like, real grouchy about it. But she's like, I don't care. Everything's going to reset, so whatever. And so she finally gets rid of him, but she was with him for, like, a month before she could figure out a way to get him over into the apartment and up into the attic. So that was kind of funny. She couldn't figure out how to get rid of him. And then, again, she, like, goes through several husbands really fast. Like, she spends an hour with one, but he he's like an alcoholic or something. And then she has another one who she finds out is broke. She finds and like another one, like it's just none of them work out really well. Though she always finds something wrong with all of these men that she keeps sending them back to get a new husband. Until it's like a week or so before her friend's wedding. And she's like, I need to get a good husband to bring me to this wedding. So she cycles through a whole bunch of random little ones. Like one guy's really short. One guy is, whatever. All these silly little reasons to get rid of people. But then a gentleman comes through. His name's Carter. I do remember his name, Carter. And they really hit it off. He's an American. And at first she's like, oh my gosh, clearly, like we got married for him to get a visa to live here. But no, they actually really hit it off. He's really nice. They get along really well. He has a great sense of humor. He's attractive. They seem to have a really good like friendship base. So she keeps him around for a while. And they go to the wedding together. And he's really cool at the wedding. They like dance together. But then they like go for a walk separately because they feel like getting away. It's like really hot. And she just has a really good time with him. She really likes him. She's like, oh my gosh, this one could be the one. Like, I'm going to keep him. Like she looks back through their photographs and their text messages and everything seems like wonderful and friendly and loving and true and honest. And she's like, oh my gosh, I think I found the one. But unfortunately, after only 2 weeks, he on his own accord goes up in the attic. Oh, I remember. He wanted to look through their wedding photos because it was closing in on their anniversary or something. And he went up in the attic to get their wedding album so they could like look through their wedding photos together. So it's so sweet. But he went up in the attic and he poof disappeared. And then some other guy. And she didn't even know it happened. She was like, I don't know, making a cup of coffee. And then all of a sudden the coffee cup in her hand morphed into a different coffee cup. And she knew, oh my gosh, he's gone. So it was just, she was devastated. And the guy who came down, she stayed with him for a little bit only because she was still processing everything with Carter. And she starts Googling Carter and all of this stuff, trying to figure out like, well, where is he? Maybe I could reconnect with him. We could like re-meet and we would fall in love again and like do it all again. And I'll just divorce this guy. But she just cycles through a couple more husbands in the meantime. And then this really interesting thing, I should probably do my makeup. This really interesting thing happens. And a guy comes down, I think his name was, he was Korean. And then he had a Korean name and it was a really long name, but I think he went by Bo or something similar to that. It started with a B and it was like an Americanized name an English version name based on his Korean name. But he comes in and they're hanging out for not very long. They're like watching TV together. And he seems a little odd. Like the way he's looking around, she notices it's like he's never seen the apartment before. And she realizes, she's thinking back, all these other husbands immediately like, they knew her, they knew their way around the apartment, they knew everything about everything. They knew like the one door that sticks and they have to open it a certain way in order to get it open. Like they knew all of that. Like they had been living here for a while. They knew all her friends. They knew all kinds of stuff, right? Like they had a whole history together. Well, this guy, Bo, doesn't seem to know her or the apartment at all. Like he says a couple of things that weird her out. Like, why doesn't he know that? I think he asks her a question about her family. And she's like estranged from her family except her sister. And so it's like, she's just like, sorry about that. So anyway, he asks her about her family and she's like, why does he not know? Like all of her husbands knew her history and her, like she didn't really have a close, like her father was dead and she didn't have a real close relationship with her mom and it was only her sister. So that was suspicious. But the real kicker was when he went to go to the door that sticks and he didn't know how to open it. The door stuck and he like rattled it and couldn't figure it out. Actually, no, what it was the attic door. And he went, he's like, I think I hear like a squirrel or something in the attic. I need to pop back up there. and see what's going on. And she's like, no, please don't go in the attic. Like, it's fine. I don't hear anything. And he's like, no, I really need to check it out. And then he doesn't know how to open the attic door, even though every other husband, because they had lived there for whatever, in their existence, they lived there. So they knew how to open the attic door. He didn't. So she thought, that's real suspicious. And so she stops him from going into the attic. He's like, no, don't go in the attic. What's your deal? Like, something's fishy. And they get to talking, and they find out that Bo is like Lauren, where he is jumping from relationship to relationship. But instead of like her sending the men up into the attic to swap out husbands, he is the one who goes into certain places and then walks out in a different marriage, a different life. So like he'll like go up into an attic, and then when he climbs out of the attic, he's in a totally different place. And then when he wants to leave that place, he pops back into the attic, and then he'll like walk out of a broom closet into a new life. And then when he wants to leave that place, he walks into the broom closet and then pops out of the shed in the backyard into a new life. And he's like, I don't know, I've been doing this for a couple of years. I don't really know. It just happened one day. And he's bisexual. So he's like, sometimes it's husbands, sometimes it's wives. It is what it is. And he's like, oh, I've probably had over 1,000 spouses. There we go. Because he's been doing this for so long. And she's like, are you kidding me? Like, you've never found anybody that you really like? And he's like, well, actually, I did find one man, and we were together for 3 years. But I remember what it was. That guy ended up with like cancer or something and was dying. Hold on, let me turn my light up a little brighter. There we go. He was the husband, Bo's husband was dying, and he was like, I don't want to watch him die. He genuinely loved this man, and he didn't want him to die. So he went back into wherever he came out of to reset everything. And then as soon as he did, he like checked online and found him, and he wasn't sick. He didn't die, anything. So he's like, I'm glad I did it because I saved him. And now he's married to somebody else. He has kids. He's happy. And I'm glad I did what I did, even though he was the only one I ever loved. It is what it is. At least I know he's alive and happy. So, and she tells him the story of Carter, the only husband she ever loved, and how like he's back in America and he's also married, and she misses him and doesn't know if she's ever going to find what she had with him and all this stuff. It was just really, really sad. So they bond over the fact that they have this thing. Now, he put together an email address that is like a really weird random email address. So every time he goes into a new place, he just restarts it. And it's one that like is so out there and bonkers, like it's always available. So he's like, keep in touch, email me, I'll remember you. So they keep in touch. And he goes off back into the attic, into a new life. They email each other. They'll even email, like, here's my phone number, so they can text message each other then once they're in their new place with their new everything. So through the rest of the story, she and Bo are friends, and they keep in touch with each other. And that ends up being important because at one point, the one husband that comes down from the attic, focus, Jennifer, and do your makeup. The husband that comes down is her ex-boyfriend from before any of this started. His name was, I want to say Oliver. We're just going to call him Oliver. If you've seen my other videos, you know I'm terrible with remembering characters' names. We're going to call him Oliver. So, like, for example, when she went to the wedding, her best friend's wedding with Carter, Oliver was there and he had a girlfriend and like they got along just fine, but it was awkward. Well, now Oliver is her husband. So whatever this alternate universe that she's existing, they never broke up. They ended up getting married, but they're not happy. Like they should have broken up. Again, focus, Jennifer. You're supposed to be doing makeup. Well, anyway. So Oliver's her husband, and she's not real excited about it, and she's trying to figure out a way to get him up in the attic. But they get into a big fight, and he storms off and goes to, like, stay with his friend or whatever. She cannot get him to come back. She keeps trying to get him to come back, like, can we talk about it? We need to work this out. Blah, bitty, blah, bitty, blah. He will not. He will not have anything to do with her. He files for divorce, and she's like, okay, am I going to be stuck with this because I can't get him back over here? And so she's just like, maybe I should just file for divorce, and this is my life. So she starts dating once they're separated and processing the divorce. She's stuck with this for like 3 months, 4 months or something. Maybe not quite that long, because the whole book, by the way, takes place over the span of like a year and a half. And so she's like, I guess I'm just stuck with this. So she starts dating. And what's hilarious is at one point she meets the girl that Oliver brought to the wedding in one of the alternate universes, and they become friends. So she's married to Oliver, going through divorce, meets his old date from the alternate universe, and they become really good friends. And they go on like double dates together, and she dates a bunch of people. None of them really work out. She doesn't really like any of them that much. And she's just like, at first she's like, dating is fun, no commitment. Now that I have had all these husbands, I know what I want, I know what I don't want, etc. But she never really finds the right one. She finds something wrong with all of them and a reason to not be with them, right? Like, oh, this guy, I don't know. I don't remember any of the specifics, but they all had something. Like, one of them wore leather pants. One of them was like obsessed with Star Wars, and she was just like, no. One of them, and all these different reasons to not be with these different men. So eventually she's like, I can't do this. I don't want to be divorced. I don't want to date. I do want a husband. Oliver's not the one, so I'm going to have to send him up in the attic somehow. I got to get him over here somehow. So what she ends up doing is she contacts Bo and gets Bo to help. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but Bo was involved. She convinces Oliver to come over to the apartment. I think because she's like, there's an emergency. I really need you to come over here. I need your help, blah, blah, blah. Or I have this thing of yours that you're going to want, etc. She gets him over there, but he will not go in the attic. He's like, well, just go up in the attic and get it yourself. Like, if you really want, if this is such an emergency, like, I'm here. Just go up there and get whatever it is you want me to get. I'm not climbing the attic. Just, this is stupid. Stop being annoying. So he will not go up in the attic. So she doesn't know what to do. But earlier, when she came up with this whole plan, she went and found a gun. As it turns out, she went back to the rich guy's mansion because she knew he had guns. So she like literally takes a train, breaks into his apartment. Well, she doesn't break in because she knows the codes from when she used to live there. But she breaks in because she's not supposed to be there in this universe. She steals a gun and then brings it back to the house. So when Oliver's there, pardon me, he will not go up into the attic because he's all like pissy about the divorce and everything. She basically holds a gun to him and is like, go in the attic. Like, I do not want to have to shoot you, but I will go into the attic. He's like, oh my gosh, okay, I'll go into the attic. Like, calm down. This is insane. And he finally does. Actually, no, I still think he won't climb into the attic, or he does something different because she ends up shooting him because he will not go into the attic, but he passes out. Because it isn't like a gun. I think it was like an airsoft gun or a BB gun or something. So she knocks him out instead of kills him. So she's like, crap, now I have to get him up into the attic. That's when Bo comes in. She calls Bo and is like, I really, really need your help. And he's like in another country, but because this is England, I think he was in like, I don't know, Germany or Italy or something. So he could get there within a couple of hours. So he comes over right away, as quickly as he can, and he literally helps her drag his body up into the attic to get rid of Oliver. And it works because, poof, the thing happens, Oliver's gone, and a new husband comes down. And it's just really funny because it just gets so chaotic and wild. And then, again, she cycles through a bunch of more husbands, most of them insignificant that she gets rid of. One of them... Another funny part. So the story was funny. There were some, emotionally charged pieces, but overall it was really funny. I think I want to put on a little bit more brown to just get in here a little bit. So anyway, there was another really funny part where The guy who comes down through the attic, and I'm really not telling this in order, so I am not telling you the book in chronological order. I'm just like little bits and pieces of the story are coming back to me as I tell it, so I apologize. A guy comes out of the attic and he falls out of the attic and breaks a couple ribs. I think breaks his leg. Yeah. And so she has to like nurse him back to health because she can't get him back up into the attic. So she's stuck with him for like a couple of months as well until he's well enough to climb back into the attic. I think what she ends up doing with him, because he's like scared now, he doesn't want to go up into the attic anymore. He's scared from his fall. So he's like, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to avoid that ladder for a while. So she drugs him. Oh, that's right. She had a husband earlier. Like, it's funny how all these different husbands end up overlapping, and she uses her knowledge in her current situation because one of the husbands from before was on drugs and had a friend that he would get his drugs from. So she knew a place where she could go get drugs. So she breaks into that person's apartment. No. She actually buys drugs from him. That wasn't, I mean, it was illegal to get drugs, but she doesn't break in. She goes to them and is like, hey, I need some, whatever. I just really want to like pass out tonight. What do you suggest? And she buys something and then gives it to this husband. And he's not that big, I guess. And she carries him up into the attic and gets rid of him that way because he's like super weird and he's like, I don't know, there were like lots of other things. She would have gotten rid of him pretty quickly, but she had to nurse him back to health. And so as soon as he was like sort of well enough and she drugs him and she's like, all right, just climb up the steps because he was all drugged. And she's like pushing him and he's out of it. And it's like, I can't. And she's pushing him up there. It's hilarious. But she gets rid of him. And then there's another part where she actually keeps the husband for a while because she decides she wants to try to find Carter, the one that she feels like was the one, and she wants to try to find him and see if they can rekindle. And because everything resets when she gets a new husband, including her bank account, she's like, I'm going to just deplete all my money, spend every penny I have. I'm going to get airline tickets. I'm going to stay. She found out where he lived. He was in Detroit, I want to say. I don't know, but she flies to where he's living, and he's single in this world, in this plan. And so she finds him. He's a real estate agent in Detroit. So she goes there and she goes to his office. She's like, hi, I'm from London. I'm moving to Detroit for work. I was wondering if you could show me some houses in the area. And so he does. He keeps it very professional. He's very friendly. And she's flirting with him and trying to like rekindle their spark. And it comes up in the conversation that like it's his neighbor's birthday. Like he's like, oh, I can't show you any more houses. I'm sorry. I have a birthday party to get to. And so she stalks him basically and shows up at the restaurant that the birthday party is at because she wants to like see him again. She's like, oh my gosh, it's so funny meeting you here. You're my real estate agent, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, hi, nice to see you again. Yeah, you have a good time. And remember, everything she told him is a lie. She's not moving to the United States. She's not actually looking to buy a house. It's all made up just so she can meet him again. And unfortunately, her shenanigans turn him off of her, and he's like weirded out by it. So she, tucks her tail between her legs and heads home, and she's like, that didn't work. That was awful. It was humiliating. And then she resets the husband. She resets the husband so she can start all over. And even though she realizes like Carter's going to forget her because it's a new universe. So she's really struggling with that. The whole book, she's struggling with how much she wishes she had Carter back, but it doesn't work out in her favor. So then towards the end of the story, this is getting close to the end of the story, she starts to get sick of it. It's been like a year and a half, like 18 months of her jumping from marriage to marriage. And in some of them, like her best friend is not married to the person she married. Sometimes she is. Sometimes her best friend is divorced. Sometimes her sister isn't married or have kids because of whatever, path it is. It leads to something different. One of them, she and her mom are actually close again. And she almost keeps that just to keep relationship with her mom. But then the husband didn't work out. So like all these different things, she gets to experience all these alternate universes, depending on like the choices and paths that her life takes in each of these universes and how it affects all these different things. So she has like all these epiphanies and you know, life lessons. It's really interesting. But by the end, she's like, I'm sick of this. I just want to settle down. This is too much. Like, I don't like having to relearn my life and my history and all of that. Like, I just can't do this anymore. And so, I don't know which color. I'll use this one. We'll see how this works. So in the end, she decides this next husband who comes through, she's going to keep him. And if it doesn't work out, they'll get a divorce and she'll move on with her life. But she doesn't want to keep passing through husbands. She does do a couple of things. Sorry. That was pretty gross. I apologize, but I had a big hangnail and I had to get it. Maybe I'll delete that if I can figure out how. So she brings a husband down, and while he's up there, like as soon as he starts coming down, she's like, oh crap, my sister just texted, I need to go, I'll see you in a couple minutes. And so she bolts before she can see him, before she can find an excuse, like he's too tall, he's too skinny, he has too many tattoos, I don't like his hair, or he has a lazy eye. She's like, I'm not gonna see him, I'm gonna get out of here. So she leaves, and she goes and immediately checks her phone, and her sister is married and has the kids, the same kids. Everything's working out. So that's all good and normal. And then she checks that her friends who live downstairs, there was one where they were getting a divorce and another one where they didn't live there. So she makes sure that they live there and they're still friends. She confirms that her best friend is still married and happy with the guy that they went to the wedding together. She like checks everything is whatever. She checks in with Bo, and everything is as it should be, and all of her friends and, you know, relatives are happy and whatnot. So she's like, okay, this is it. I'm just gonna make this work. So she does that, and then she texts him and says, hey babe, I'm at my sister's, I'm babysitting the kids, I'm gonna be here for a couple of hours, I'll make dinner when I get home. Can you run to the store and get this, and this for dinner tonight? And he's like, sure, no problem. I'll head out here in a couple of minutes. But in reality, she's like around the corner waiting for him to leave. And he leaves, and she still doesn't see him. He goes off. She goes into the apartment, and she lights a fire in the attic with the intention of getting rid of the magic attic so she can't do this anymore. Because she's like, I don't know how else to stop it. I'm going to convince myself to get rid of my husband and just keep doing this forever, but I can't. I'm over it. She's like, this is it. I have to do this. I have to light my house on fire. So she does, and she runs. She hears the sirens coming, and she sees messages from her husband saying, oh my gosh, there's sirens coming. Are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. Because she left, anyway. So he's texting, are you okay? She's texting, are you okay? And when they get to the house with the fire and the firemen and everything, that's the first time she meets him. And lucky for her, he's actually like handsome. Like she just finds him attractive. And he like runs up to her and hugs her. And he's like, oh my gosh, I thought you were in the house. I don't know what happened. I swear I didn't like leave any candles on. The oven wasn't on, nothing. I don't know what happened. And then they determined it was like an electrical situation because she figured it out. You know, she made it look like a legitimate accident. And the story ends with them sitting on the side of the street, like, hugging each other and being grateful that they are both okay and they're not worried about the house. They'll survive, you know? They'll find somewhere else to go. They'll be okay, right? And that's literally how the story ends, with them being happy, and she's just like, okay, this is it. I guess you're my husband. She looks through her phone, figures out his name, stuff like that. And that's how the book ends. So a bit of a cliffhanger, but with the assumption that like it's going to work out, right? I really liked it. Like I said in the beginning, it's not a book that I would have ever chosen if I was reading the back blurb. Like the back blurb sounded interesting, but it's not the type of book that I typically read, but I liked it. I do have a couple of things that I didn't like. Firstly, I don't know how the author could have, but I would have liked some sort of explanation about why or how, maybe not how, maybe why this is happening. Like why did this experience happen to Lauren and Bo? But I guess it isn't necessary, but the whole time I was wondering is like, why is this happening to her? Like, is there something about her. I don't know, but it would have been nice if there was some little hint about like why this experience happened to her. But either way, I would give it like a 7 out of 10. I did like it. There were some parts where I feel like the pacing was a little bit off. It was a little bit too much with this husband, and I would have liked to have seen more with that husband, but that's just my personal preference of which subplots I think would have been more interesting. But overall, I really liked it. It was a unique idea, good writing, great humor. It was a lot of fun, and it had some interesting little twists that I thought were really cool with like different husbands and different alternate universes that would interconnect. So that was really fun. I would recommend it. I think you should give it a try. Yeah, that's my story. This is my look today. I tried a new eyeshadow palette today called Mama B. No, Wannabe. Wannabe. And it's these pretty yellows and golds. So this was my new eyeshadow today. I like it. I'm finally doing something different. It's not just browns and pinks. Now I've got like golds and taupes, I guess we'll call it. Yeah. I hope you like it today. It's a little bit different. I also have a very neutral lip today, which I don't always do. That's a lie. I always do neutral lips. Anyway, I hope you like my look today. I hope you were interested in the book that I talked about. Maybe you'll give it a read. And as I always say, I would love some book recommendations or look recommendations. So add some comments below about what you think I should try, what you think I should read. And if you know this book, let me know what you think. Do you agree with my assessment? Was there any key scene that you really loved that I didn't mention? Add it to the comments below and we'll chat about it. I love to interact with comments. So please add some comments. And while you're at it, like my video, share my video, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Help me out. I would love that. Thank you. Well, that said, I hope you have a wonderful everything. And as always, stay beautiful inside and out. Love you. Bye.